The first one I'll start with is In the Fisted Hand of May. On 14th Street, the posters throw body parts into the pedestrian eye furnace, and I don't walk too close to the newspaper stands or the headlines will bleed on my shoes. If I encounter a mud-caked Christ on the echoing sidewalk and he laughs like a hyena when I genuflect, I'll believe in his gospel, providing he doesn't make hairspray of equivalent value to large tracts of land. But I don't welcome overtures or solicitations in public. I acknowledge the doomsday sky resembling a bombed city, and the swinging door that each face throws into the emptiness at large. In the amniotic air, my shadow sticks where I pause. I'd opt for a floating forest serenaded by an oboe or flute, but it won't happen here. Grounded in pizza smell and rush hour scream machines, space is a cage and the streets are magnetic. New York is a worldly city, but the present is too discreet. If you cling to a past that's too distant, you will never feel part of a crowd. The shirtless beggar who asks for a cigarette arouses an obscure double carved out of porous stone. Animated by the wind, he fell into this history. I give him my social security number if it would help him to step into time, but numbers are meaningless to those who are not linear. Lighting his cigarette, he departs into the pink rain of a Manhattan sunset, at least that part of him which is visible. Watch out for those vapors, I caution him. The manholes are ghost traps. Enough of enough. I have slide around nightmares that would fit into any brain suspicious of sleep. I have a tenant above me who knocks on my door to ask if I see his body. He fears he is turning to dust. I tell him to get a vacuum cleaner and slam the door in his face. I have a cat that chases a shadow and a shadow that chases a cat. Some things are self perpetuating, they don't need to get motivated. I have 16 words on a little piece of paper found in a fortune cookie taped to a wall. One must dare to be himself, however strange or frightening that self may prove to be. As a daily reminder, I remind myself I have enough of enough. I relieve myself from this abundance of having. I think of the things I had and no longer do. I no longer have a wife who said I was the worst husband she ever had. I no longer have a mother who said I was a bad son. I no longer have Jesus who agreed with my mother. I have this poem, which may or may not end in another. Sometimes passion burns a curve over the square world, and a tilted sky slopes into a quiet heart. The Last Passenger. Rain on the windshield, the wipers are demons. I listen to how they screech. The car is my outer skin. Where the tire tracks end, I am the soggy shoe of a life, abandoned by footprints in mud. Body and mind are temporarily separated like a distraught couple thinking of where to go next. My last passenger wanted to know what do I do for fun. I told her I abduct babies and eat them because a vegetarian diet isn't for real men. She told me I should eat her husband. He's the biggest baby she had ever met. This is where the streets dwindle around the abrupt walls of a Lower East Side apartment. All those years as a urinal on wheels did have an effect. The piss I transformed to the ink in my pen smears on a page that retreats from my thoughts. The face in this smear has a sad, tired look, like someone surviving a war without end, while the bombing goes on and the dead walk around in bodies of smoke and debris. Wishful thinking. I hear the wind whistling in the walls. Who does it serenade beside an indifferent ear that would rather hear voices from a place I can barely imagine? Because it keeps fleeing into an inchoate architecture of someplace else. For now, I rest in the space of a two-dimensional surface around the folds of a painting, where the foreground slides into a slanted horizon like a gigantic snake looking for God, while the wind stops to listen to the subject of conversation I would like to discuss. If I could talk to a voice from beyond, how would I simply explain I'm looking for reassurance? Does the painting seem like a stain about to bleed out into some kind of semblance of something that wants to exist and can't find its way into space? The wind doesn't answer. Whistling around in the room, it sounds in a hurry, as if anxious to muscle up in the eye of a storm and return like a child to step on a toothpick city it built with a wish. Okay, this is Powder Ridge, which I would like to preface first. The Powder Ridge Rock Festival was scheduled to be held in late July or early August in 1970 at Powder Ridge Ski Area in Middlefield, Connecticut. A legal injunction forced the event to be canceled, keeping the musicians away. But a crowd of 30,000 attendees arrived anyway to find no food, no entertainment, no adequate plumbing, and at least 70 drug dealers. And what they feared was going to happen, a big sex and drug fest, did happen because of the injunction. So this is Powder Ridge. The crutch in your nose poet sits on a park bench complaining about the uncle of his geometry. Or maybe he means his geometric uncle. I don't know. Sometimes he sounds like reversed Latin. Sometimes he looks like compressed putty. Today he is clean shaven, says the past is redundant. I was thinking the same thing. It was neither the day nor the night. The sun and the moon were both glue traps. In the zebra skinned air, they permitted the clouds, pink striped and polka dotted, but prohibited music. Unplugged and ready to riot, crowds milled around. A friend brushed his shoes, said, "The wind is a rope of hornets." Actually, it was quite hot. There wasn't any wind. I was warned about drugs, danger of brain warp, like a piece of snot flicked in the dirt. A squirrel will eye you, a spider will take you away, and under a shadow, like an ant in a church, the grass wanted sex, but I couldn't get grounded. Merely a bug on a leaf. I wasn't about to engage with a 50-foot woman who couldn't stop dripping her anteater's tongue. I tried hiding. Talk about depth psychology. She ate everything. Earthquake, earthquake, an avalanche arrived. I was falling up. Others were with me, like clusters of dead planets. We crashed into a small orgy. It wasn't a small orgy. There was never a 50-foot woman. I was never a bug on a leaf. I had to evolve further. Life as a virus is too risky. They're always trying to wrap you with antibiotics or wrap you around some unpronounceable name. There are other versions in this story that keep happening like an immense cobweb. Some memories have to be clubbed, squashed, or otherwise obliterated. I pay attention to small print. If recurrence continues, they were whipping a skeleton on television one night. Aroused by the sight of this, somewhere someone was jerking off. I just knew it. Starting to do it myself, the dog swooned in her sleep. That was my experience with acid the first time and the last time I ever used it at the Powder Ridge Music Festival. That never happened. Ecstasis. Someone was telling me how many fish he caught in a lake, how many women he fucked in a week. Who cares? I've got something to think about that just happened to arise for no reason. As we live walking beside our bodies, patting them on the back, for thinking a relevant thought or something that's just weird or amusing. I remember this guy who wrapped up a woman in toilet paper on Fifth Avenue who was hit by a tour bus in the Upper West Side of Manhattan and died instantly. He had 13 snakes in his glass cages in his Lower East Side apartment. I once watched one of his women dance with a python. It was so mesmerizing, her belly button ignites whenever it flares in my head. I storehouse these images in pits of bewilderment that collapse from the weight of bunching together with the broken architecture of dreams. I ask the kiss on my brow whose lips it belonged to. A car drove by, a pistol fired once. I jumped out of sight, out of body, out of mind. Trying to ground the day in this vanishing point is like binding a myth to a rock with a spool of unending thread. A clock on a desk stops for a conversation about God and the end of time and the electric sense of completion that sometimes arrives unexpectedly from one hand being placed over another. October is still missing. Two candles locate my elbows. A rusted nail holds up the dusk. Stay as you are wherever your torch song takes you. I'll have a Cuba Libre, nursing the carved date in the table. Your hands are so quiet. There's a jagged heart scrawled on the wall. You were talking about a dream. Someone was on the roof. In the window, you saw a small monkey. A gorilla behind it seemed strangely concerned. Somehow you knew the monkey was blind. On the day before that, the book fairy died. An arrow-headed rain crumpled his cardboard apartment, vanished his Teflon smile over his sidewalk remains. In the barmaid's hair, an illuminant color that has the obscure shade familiar to recollections bloated by sleepless nights. Adorning her right shoulder, a Jesus with red lips and bedroom expression looks thirsty for blood. Wagging a gargoyle's tongue, I want to tell you a story. On the other side of a fence, there's an oafish woman chasing a small boy with her daughter's panties. Dressed in her stock market reports, the woman screamed after us, and we never played doctor in that garage anymore. In whatever direction I look, there's a rhinoceros in the dark, hungry for conversation. Can you handle another round for the dwarf Christ of our pedestrian senses? While October is still missing, I want to go to Madrid and talk to an ogre who knew Goya. Shaking the bats from his beard, what would he tell us? Is he sorry he didn't pose for Lautrec? Deja vu. It wasn't intoxication. 2 beers weren't too many before I left the city. If there was piss in my shoes and I had wobbly, boneless legs, then I'd know I was drunk. But when I boarded the train, walking as if too cautious of stepping on dead sparrows with my clumsy Manhattan feet, there was that interminable feeling again of lacking origin and destination, which made a trip to the country like entering space. It was a childish emotion, and I had to dismiss it when I sat myself down and opened a book about power and money, which was a ponderous text of insensible tripe, though there were some sentences that stuck like darts. The view from my window, which was the Hudson River, was the only resort I could see. The river was choppy and also hypnotic. By staring and staring, I might become transparent to dispel the unbearable sameness I felt about my sense of deja vu. Time in that state is a box with collapsible sides that informs me of another time and place, when I was here again like this, escaping from the news reports of starvation and slaughter to the remoteness of mountains and the welcome of friends who seem secure enough in their entrenchment here and in a lighter mood might seem unlike they are as if their lives were fixed like every tree and stone and every blade of grass of every listless day, yet made our idle talk of going to Europe like going to heaven, if the sky could accept us like an empty saloon filled with chatter and smoke, left by a crowd who were fugitives like us, nameless and homeless, yet glad to be lost. Infinity and me. I followed myself in a dream. I tapped on my shoulder, and turning around, I saw it was me, and then another me, and then another me extending into infinity. Preferring to be where I am than in infinity, I will never again turn around in a dream. Though I remind myself at times the one am is so unlike the one I was, how many more of me are there in memory, unlike the one I am, unlike the one I was? That wheel that went astray in the street. The foot that splashes the minor grievances out of the mud puddle is too small to be mine. I didn't want an unknown childhood. My father slept with a small arsenal under his pillow, and still he complained about my bow and arrow, my brass knuckles, and plastic grenade. Was it the war in the Alps that followed him to America? Did his memory of the dead assemble their souls in his shoes? Did an illuminated figment of his witch mother administer bad luck from inside a closet? Were there floating crucifixes shadowing him into Chinatown gambling dens? There are certain words that sink into an image of bursting pie crust when I listen to foreign languages in enclosed places. Like my subterranean brain, a subway station is an underground country. That rat eating a part of a sandwich on the subway track is the size of a football. The train arrives like a threat. Are the passengers dead or clones of other passengers who died waiting? Scintillated on the chiropractor's table, I am a bone of cloud, emblem of the flesh eating air that Manhattan generates to downsize its population. The chiropractor says that I'm doing well. It's a phrase of speech that was built into his education. It rolls off his tongue like a package on a conveyor belt. Was the chiropractor's masseur mothered by an octopus, bald, round, and clammy as he is? Is his intent more serious than relieving an aching back? Will his hands read memories that I am unaware are embedded in dead nerve cells? Does skin talk to skin in the language of touch? The masseur's hands swim through my questions. He listens obliquely through the tips of his fingers. Aroused by a memory, an overturned boat in the bath water, the size of a child's palm, is unclear as to whose life it belongs. But my back is a toasted ocean, and an unhinged day is only another eye of the sun, released from the pain giving world, that wheel that went astray in the street. Sideshow. On the noon pin, stop wherever you're going. Whatever has stuck this day to another. A child is spanking his mother. He doesn't want explanations. She's late for their rendezvous, and she hasn't brought any candy. She refuses to genuflect and even to say she's sorry. What an irresponsible mother. Policeman, give me your stick. You know how time travels, how yesterday yearns and tomorrow anticipates. On the next street corner, if only those jackhammers would stop, seems like an ideal place to locate a vanishing point. Is that you in your Holy Communion uniform, a gang of afterthoughts chasing you out of Eve's garden into a grisly movie? Freaks with gigantic heads and homunculus bodies reaching with welcoming arms out of bituminous pits. Directions are pointed to, but the stars aren't reliable. It's safer in this country where your mirror view sunglasses in the world can admire itself than in an overexposed photograph in your family album. You can't stray into too many worlds at once without risking a disappearance into a third person narrative, ending in mob rule. Your mother tells you to shut your mouth, or you will catch flies and you can't join the parade. It's only some communist rabble yelling, "Workers unite." There's more hope in a department store window. A mannequin never complains. A taxi is on the sidewalk, and look at how still they are. Plato would love them. But the vendors are moving on. Today is trout day. Today is clam day. Today is eel day. If you don't know the day of the week, eat a fish. The skyline beyond is a snake charmer's delight. And I'll finish with spirits. I was informed I have psychic potentiality because I frequently feel spidery webs caressing my face. This means spirits are entering me without even being invited, like party crashers. When did my body become a party? Or was it always a party without knowing it? I wonder about the nature of these spirits, preferring silk panties to spider webs caressing my face. Do I have a choice in the matter? And what might it mean to have psychic potentiality? I don't want to talk to the dead or float among cloud dwellers who are afraid to stay grounded because Earth is just quicksand, or to possess the ability to read minds, equivalent to wandering around war zones filled with improvised explosive devices. And I don't need to dwell on the consequences of being a medium for alien visitors from space. So I've decided to see a dermatologist who might prescribe an appropriate ointment for spidery sensations caressing my face. Following that, I would have to see an optometrist, since on certain days I see everything in pink. Yesterday, a drunk stumbled out of a bar and accused me of stealing the sidewalk. All he could see under his feet was pink. Therefore, seeing everything in pink isn't only madly annoying, it's contagious also. Thank you. That's it.